June 4, 1943, Railroad Street, Mexia, Texas. The pencil quivered in the hand of Unifitzia Vera Burkhardt as he scribbled in his secret diary, words that, if discovered by his own officers, would have condemned him to solitary confinement. "The Americans must be deceiving us," he wrote. "No country could enjoy such abundance while waging war on two fronts." Yet the scene outside his train window contradicted everything 3 years of Nazi propaganda had taught him. Every farmhouse, every corner, every shop window blazed with electric light. An unbroken constellation of illumination stretched across the Texas plains at 10:00 at night. In Germany, blackout regulations had plunged the Reich into darkness since 1940. Even before the war, fewer than 1 in 5 rural farms had electricity. And yet, here in the very nation portrayed as decadent and collapsing, electricity seemed as common as air. 1,850 veterans of Erwin Rommel's Afrika Korps stepped off the train. Not from cattle cars or freight wagons, but from cushioned Pullman coaches, complete with dining service and sleeping berths. The entire town of Mexia had gathered to witness their arrival, unaware that this moment would ignite one of the most profound psychological shifts of modern history, the systematic dismantling of Nazi ideology, not through speeches or arguments, but through the overwhelming evidence of American industrial strength. The arithmetic of Allied victory was being written not in battle plans, but in production statistics, numbers that would soon unravel every belief these soldiers carried about their homeland, their enemies, and their cause. The collapse had begun weeks earlier, on May 13, 1943, in Tunisia. General Jurgen von Arnim, Rommel's successor, surrendered alongside nearly 250,275,000 German and Italian troops. The Wehrmacht's most hardened desert veterans, men who had pushed the British to the gates of Egypt, men respected even by Montgomery himself, were now prisoners. Among them was Hauptmann Friedrich Radke, decorated with the Iron Cross First Class, veteran of the French campaign, twice wounded in North Africa. His diary, later uncovered in the U.S. National Archives, would become one of the most detailed accounts of the psychological unraveling that captivity in America inflicted on German soldiers. That journey began in the Algerian port of Oran. There, Radke and 30, Zaros and others waited in makeshift camps for transport ships, already witnessing an unsettling efficiency. The U.S. Army processed thousands daily with precision that outstripped even the Wehrmacht at its height. Identification cards photographed and filed, medical exams completed, inoculations administered, Geneva Convention rights explained in flawless German by officers trained for exactly this task. The first shock, however, came with food. Obergefreiter Hans Müller, captured with the 21st Panzer Division, later wrote to his mother, "In the cage at Oran, while awaiting ships, the Americans fed us better than we had eaten in 6 months of desert war. White bread, real coffee, meat twice a day. We thought it was propaganda. Only later did we learn this was their standard ration." The ships that carried them across the Atlantic embodied the same industrial miracle. The Liberty ship SS Robert E. Peary had been built in just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes at Kaiser Shipyards in Richmond, California, an achievement Germans would have dismissed as fantasy had they known. At peak production, 3 of these massive vessels rolled off American shipyards every day. Returning from supply runs to Europe, they now carried as many as 30,000 tons per month back to the United States. The 2-week Atlantic crossing offered the next stage of ideological demolition. Feldwebel Kurt Zimmermann of the 90th Light Division described in letters home how the crew discarded more food waste each day than his company had received in rations during the war's final months in Africa. Half-eaten steaks, whole loaves of bread, gallons of milk poured out. He wrote, not to mock us, simply because it meant nothing to them. Their supply was limitless. The ships themselves revealed further truths. Prisoners learned from talkative guards that there would be 2 710 Liberty ships built during the war, each requiring 250,000 parts manufactured in 32 states. Engines were assembled from pieces produced in 3 separate factories, all newly built within the last 2 years. Lieutenant Colonel Wilhelm von Steuben, of a distinguished Prussian military family, recalled in his memoirs, "As our vessel neared the American coast, I saw the radar antenna turning above the bridge. Radar on a cargo ship. We had believed only Germany and perhaps Britain possessed such equipment in small quantities. At that moment I realized Germany had already lost. August 6, 1943, Norfolk Naval Base, Virginia. The first glimpse of America obliterated the last illusions of Nazi propaganda. Norfolk sprawled over 300 acres, with docks stretching for miles, cranes loading and unloading dozens of ships at once. In a single day, The base handled more cargo than Hamburg did in a week. Gerrit Johann Weber, once a Ruhr factory worker, counted 47 ships in various stages of loading. He marveled at cranes powered by electricity rather than coal, moving with a smoothness and scale unimaginable in Germany. Even more astonishing were the cars. Hundreds of civilian automobiles filled the parking lots. Ordinary dock workers drove to work in vehicles most Germans could never dream of owning. The much-promised Volkswagen had remained a propaganda fantasy, with fewer than 1,000 delivered to civilians. And then came the trains, not the cramped boxcars of European troop transport, but Pullman passenger coaches with padded seats, dining cars draped in white linens, even observation lounges with panoramic windows. Radke wrote, were boarded like tourists, not prisoners. One American guard even apologized for the air conditioning not functioning properly. Air conditioning, a luxury the prisoners had thought existed only on Hitler's personal train. The 3-day journey from Norfolk to Texas proved more destructive to Nazi ideology than any battlefield defeat. As the trains rolled through Virginia and the South, prisoners pressed their faces to the windows, stunned. Small towns glowed with electricity, shops lit by neon signs. Factories working night shifts, parking lots full at midnight. One prisoner later wrote, "Every town we passed had more electricity than all of Hamburg. The guards told us every American town had power since the 1920s. I called him a liar. He only smiled and said we would see." At every stop, technology reinforced the message: automated coal loaders, electric pumps, mechanized repair systems. Workers in leather boots drank Coca-Cola, tossed away glass bottles, smoked cigarettes without finishing them. To men raised in scarcity, such waste was incomprehensible. As the trains crossed Tennessee and Kentucky, America's industrial might revealed itself in full. Factories larger than entire German cities. The Alcoa aluminum plant alone consumed more electricity than Munich. Synthetic rubber plants in Louisville produced 7 times Germany's peak output. And in Michigan, the Willow Run plant rolled out a B-24 bomber every 63 minutes. By the time the trains reached the camps in Texas and Oklahoma, Nazi mythology lay in ruins. Camps like Camp Hearn housed prisoners in barracks with electric lights, hot showers, and steam heating. Conditions superior to what many had known as civilians in Germany. Even the hospitals stunned German doctors. The demolition of Nazi belief had begun not through speeches or leaflets, but through the inescapable reality of America's abundance.